Into the score. Touchdown, Ohio.
For many, he was the most heralded recruit to come to Columbus in years. But for others, just another kid who was too small and too slow to make it in the big time. But Chris Spielman not only succeeded, he set a new standard of excellence for every linebacker, indeed every Buckeye that would follow in his footsteps. And while his intensity and desire put fear into opposing teams, his commitment to class both on the field and off has placed him permanently in the hearts of Buckeye fans everywhere.
Commitment, desire, intensity. These are but a few of the words that describe Buckeye legend Chris Spielman.
And I used to think of him as the Tasmanian devil.
He was really like Jekyll and Hyde.
He was just relentless. I never saw a guy so obsessed.
I was amazed at the endurance that he had. I mean, he never seemed tired.
First guy in the weight room, first guy in the film room. You know, he just seemed like he never slept.
He always pushed himself to be the best, and he pushed Ohio State to do its best.
And he wasn't the most athletically gifted player in the world, but he always seemed to be in the right place at the right time.
Spielman's relentless drive and boundless desire earned him the respect of teammates and opponents alike and made him one of college football's greatest linebackers ever. His reputation for toughness and preparation only grew when he proved his critics wrong and became one of the NFL's elite defenders.
They're looking at size, they're looking at weight, they're looking at speed. But there's one thing we always talk about in the NFL, and certainly in Chris's case, you can't measure heart.
But when his wife Stefanie fell ill with cancer, Spielman left football behind and dedicated himself to her recovery. The decision made national news and showed a previously unseen side of the on-field warrior.
The most courageous, most beautiful person in the world who is everything to me.
He committed himself totally. He became my nurse. He became the child's #1 parent. I mean, he just took care of all of us.
That commitment became a crusade when Chris and Stefanie took their private battle against breast cancer public, raising millions for research. The couple's courageous display of loyalty and love deepened the public's affection for a man already admired by football fans across the country. For Chris, it was yet another chapter in a life seemingly destined for greatness. Chris Spielman was born on October 11, 1965 in Canton, Ohio. In a region devoted to football, Chris was reared to respect the traditions of the game.
My father was an assistant coach under the great John McVay at Canton McKinley. So I understood the traditions of all the high schools up there and the importance of football to that area.
That understanding deepened when Chris's father was offered a job as an assistant coach in nearby Massillon, the nation's high school football capital.
Massillon takes pride in their football, their high school football. It's something that the whole city's proud of. It's something that the whole city's a part of and participates in.
Generally, you know, high school games, you'll have maybe 2,000, 3,000 fans. Not at Massillon, it's 20, 25,000. You know, they're the Massillon Tigers.
The city involvement, the pride, the live tiger mascot, the great Paul Brown Tiger Stadium, the tradition. And everybody considers it a privilege to be a part of that great tradition.
It didn't take Chris long to earn the respect of the Tiger faithful. Playing both linebacker and tailback, Spielman was a virtual one-man wrecking crew.
The first game we were going to go see him play, naturally there's a great hoopla with the band and the spotlight and the players, and here comes Chris, and he made most of the tackles all night from the linebacker position. He was the punter, he was the punt returner, he was the kickoff returner. He did everything.
Well, I remember Coach Earle Bruce coming back from a recruiting trip up to Massillon, and he says, hey, you got to check out this Chris Spielman kid. He never leaves the field. You know, he's going to be a player. We're going after him.
The Buckeyes weren't alone, and a national recruiting war broke out over the player many were calling the nation's best prep linebacker.
He made reference every time he came home from a school, wow, that would be great to go there. And so, you know, one was UCLA and one was Penn State, and I thought, oh my goodness, what's it going to be? And then it was Michigan, and he really seemed excited about that visit.
With National Signing Day less than 12 hours away, Spielman's decision remained a mystery. A late-night phone call ended the drama.
So about 1:30, the phone rang, and I said hello, and he said, "This is Chris Spielman, and Coach, I've made my decision." And I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and he didn't say anything. I thought, oh my goodness, he's probably going to Michigan and doesn't want to tell me. I waited, and finally he said, "I'm going to be a Buckeye."
I'm an Ohio kid, and I wanted my future to be in Ohio, and it just made sense for me to go to the greatest university in the world and to play on a great football team, and that was the Buckeyes.
It was the beginning of an era that Buckeye fans will never forget. Ohio State opened the 1984 season against the Oregon State Beavers. The Buckeyes were heavy favorites, but midway through the second quarter, they trailed 14-3, and the fans in the Horseshoe were growing restless. On the sideline, Coach Earle Bruce, used to complaints from impatient fans, heard a surprising voice through the din.
But I heard this voice saying, "I gotta play, I gotta play." I thought, what is that? And I looked back, and it was Chris.
He's like, "Coach, put me in. Coach, it's ready. It's my time. I'm ready to go in, Coach. I'm prepared. I'm ready to go in." Everybody's kind of looking around, and you could see even offensive coaches looking around saying, what's this guy talking about? What's he doing?
A preseason ankle injury cost Chris the opening day start and put his availability in question, but it did little to dampen his desire.
I just wanted to play so bad, and I've earned the right to start as a freshman at Ohio State, and the only thing that could keep me out was this injury.
So I tapped the defensive coordinator, and I said, "When are we going to play Chris?" He said, "Coach, he's a freshman. We're behind 13-7. I don't know whether he's ready to play." I said, "He's ready to play, buddy. He's ready to play."
Bruce sent Spielman in, and the impact was immediate.
Chris Spielman now in at linebacker for Ohio State. The blitz was on, and down goes Green for another loss.
I'm going, ooh, gee, diving through, running around. He was running to hit somebody, and boy, he did make a difference in that game.
With Chris on the field, the Buckeyes shut out the Beavers the rest of the way and posted a come-from-behind 22-14 victory. His performance also buried any remaining doubts about the highly touted yet unassuming superstar.
I remember him coming in as a freshman thinking, hey, this guy, he's not going to be worth the grain of salt. And they're saying that he's he's the best linebacker ever to come out. And seeing this guy making tackle after tackle, you say to yourself, whoa, what do we have here?
I think a lot of people, after seeing the number 36, run out there in the field and make all those plays, probably the first comment was, I thought you were bigger than that.
He wasn't big. He wasn't really a stud. He was a average built, linebacker built kind of guy.
You'd see Chris on the streets or in street clothes, and you weren't that impressed with him, but his fire was like nobody's I've ever saw.
He would be in the early morning watching film, late night watching film. He'd be there after practice running, before practice running.
He wouldn't go to parties like normal kids would go to because of football.
He was at every class, he was at every study table. He came early to watch films and left, and he used to always kid me when I was coming at 7:30, he was leaving to go to class, and he'd say, I beat you here.
It's been a curse in a way that I never thought I was good enough, or I always wanted to prove a point to myself more than anybody else that I wanted to be better, I wanted to work harder, I wanted to see how far I could go and how far I could push the envelope.
Spielman's inner drive and relentless work ethic paid its biggest dividends in the Buckeyes' biggest games. After missing much of his freshman year due to injury, Chris recovered in time to garner 15 tackles in the 1984 Rose Bowl. The following year, his 19-tackle, 2-interception performance helped spur one of Ohio State's biggest upsets ever, a 22-13 defeat of then #1 Iowa. And after being named MVP of the 1986 Kickoff Classic, Spielman closed out the regular season with a defensive tour de force, a 29-tackle display against arch-rival Michigan.
Although we lost that game 26-24, he played unbelievable. He had so many hits, it wasn't even funny.
Spielman capped off the '86 campaign by leading the Buckeyes to an upset win over Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl, where he was again selected as the game's defensive MVP. By the end of the year, Chris was on every All-American team and poised for a sensational senior season. But for the 1987 Buckeyes, things began to unravel before they even took the field. Star receiver Chris Carter was suspended from the team for signing with an agent, and the team never seemed to find its footing.
You don't want to put that burden on Chris that our season wasn't as good as we would have liked it to have been because of Chris, but Chris was a big part of our offense, and we lose to Iowa my last home game at Ohio State, which was very difficult, devastating. We lost to Michigan State in Ohio Stadium. We lost to Indiana in Ohio Stadium. Certainly not the way you'd like to go out.
The 3-game losing streak sank the season and cost Coach Earle Bruce his job.
There were some fans that were maybe not completely satisfied with the success of the Ohio State football program by 1987, but I think that the firing of the Ohio State coach on the Monday before the Michigan game is one of the most unusual things even the most loyal of Ohio State football fans would ever have expected.
Everybody felt terrible for Earle, how it was done, when it was done. So it wasn't the classic Ohio State-Michigan battle for something on the line. We were playing for Coach Bruce, make no mistake about it.
With their emotions on full display, the Buckeyes fought back from a 13-0 deficit and beat the heavily favored Wolverines 23-20.
After we beat Michigan up there, under those adverse circumstances, to see the team carry Earle off Michigan field victorious and seeing the years of sacrifice and how much he loved Ohio State to take him out a winner against your arch rival in their place was special.
It was about Earle standing up for his team even though he didn't have to anymore. It was about Chris seeing an example of a man who didn't walk away when it got tough. And I think that was a very good thing for Chris to see.
Chris's time to stand firm in the face of adversity was still years away, but when it came, his family's story would inspire millions. After starting the year ranked 3rd in the polls, Ohio State's 1987 season ended in disarray and the dismissal of Coach Earle Bruce.
We had a chance to do something special that year. We didn't get it done. We weren't good enough. There's no feel-goods about it. We weren't a good football team. We were 6-4-1.
But in a year of team turmoil, Spielman was tall, and his dominating play earned him the Lombardi Award as the nation's top interior lineman. Still, in spite of his proven play, some scouts were skeptical of Spielman's ability to make it in the pros.
You know, NFL, especially that first round, they're looking at size, they're looking at, weight, they're looking at speed. They want to, hopefully, what they think is a can't-miss guy.
I think it really frustrated him to hear people say that he was too slow or, not quick enough to be a linebacker in the NFL.
Taking in the second round, that motivated him even more. I mean, this guy's got tons of motivation the way it is, but, that was that little extra fire, and that made him play a little bit harder, and he went out there and proved everybody wrong.
Playing in Detroit, Spielman led the Lions in tackles his first 7 seasons and was named All-Pro 4 times. And his old-school style made him an immediate fan favorite.
You knew as a fan, if you were going to pay to go see the Detroit Lions, number 54 was going to give you 100% effort.
His popularity and success only grew when he signed a free agent deal with Buffalo in 1996.
It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about being a superstar and an individual player. It was about Chris doing what's best for the team. And people love that.
But after leading the Bills in tackles in '96, a major neck injury forced Chris to the sidelines and put his career in question.
When I do come back, if everything, of course, is healthy to come back, then I'll be the same person. I will refuse to come back and play the game with fear. I will not become a player I despise.
But as Chris prepared for a comeback, the Spielmans received news that would change their lives forever.
He was getting ready, to go to training camp. And then we're hit with, the cancer world. And he had a big decision to make.
I think if you talk to anybody and ask Chris, and then polled guys, say, hey, is Chris going to stay and play football or sit out and be with his wife and family? Everybody would say he would stay, with his wife and family.
Football was always the most important thing in his life until he got married and had kids. And then the priorities changed.
In '94, I had my daughter, Madison, who I loved more than any football game. So when Stefanie was sick, I had a choice to make. Okay, now I can go back to Buffalo and play football, or I can be by my wife.
And he said, I've decided to not go back to football for a year and take a year off and stay with you and the kids while you go through chemotherapy. And when we knock this out, then I can play football. But right now, it's my job to be with you.
That was the right thing to do, and probably a tough decision for him to give up football, but that tells you the emphasis he put on his life.
So many guys want to have that tough guy image, you know, and then maybe not be a tough guy. We all know Chris is a tough guy. I think people, if they thought Chris was just a football animal, they didn't know him. Because he had a big heart, you know, big heart.
He became my nurse. He asked the questions to the doctors. He got my prescriptions. I mean, he just took care of all of us.
Chris's commitment to his wife and willingness to sacrifice became a national story and opened the door to new opportunities.
We were put in a position to do something about a terrible thing that happened to our family, and one of our ways of fighting back and maybe punching cancer right back in the temple would be to raise money for research to help cure this disease one day.
To date, the Stefanie Spielman Fund for Breast Cancer Research has raised over $2 million and has provided Chris with a platform for his message of leadership through service.
That I am on this earth to serve God, to serve family, and to serve community.
And it all became about, you know, what's life really about? It's about committing to others. It's about making sacrifices. It's about doing community service. You know, it's about serving others.
But as Chris cared for his family, he also plotted his return to football. And when Stefanie's cancer went into remission, he made his return to the game he loves.
When I go to Cleveland and have all these high hopes, coming home, kid coming home, all that.
He grew up loving the Browns, and so it was just, life was good. I was clear from cancer, he was a Cleveland Brown, you know, things were going great.
But Chris's comeback attempt was cut short.
Playing training camp, take a couple hits, another disc in my neck goes, and I can't play anymore. I remember walking off the field knowing that was it. I remember at the press conference thinking, I don't have any regrets. My toughness and my effort and everything I could possibly do as a player, that was never questioned by a coach or a teammate, and that's the only thing I ever wanted.
But while Chris's playing days are over, his passion for the game still burns.
It's amazing in the NFL, if you ask a player what they're going to do after football, they have no clue. For Chris, it was always, I'm going to coach.
During his hiatus from the NFL, Chris was a regular presence at the Woody Hayes practice facility. And when Ohio State's head job opened up, Chris went after his lifelong dream.
He used to tell me, I want to be the head coach at Ohio State. I said, Chris, wait until I'm gone.
I got a call from him January 2nd, probably 2 or 3 hours after Coach Cooper had gotten fired. And he was already putting the staff together.
I was realistic about it. I knew that I didn't have a shot at it, and it might have been a token interview, but it was a great experience. And I felt in that interview I did a good job. I was prepared, and I offered solutions to problems and a plan, but they hired the right guy, in my opinion. And I enjoy making my own schedule, doing radio and TV and stuff, where it's important that I'm home now, and I understand that. And I can live with the fact that if I don't coach, I don't coach, but I never say that.
Whatever the future holds, Chris Spielman will continue to be a hero to many, to Buckeye fans, to the community, and to those closest to his heart.
His passion for Ohio State is great. He is really a true Buckeye.
When he was inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame, it just made me feel so good because it's obvious fans haven't forgotten him and the player that he was.
To be a part of that tradition is something that guys take very seriously. To uphold the tradition that was set before them and to be a part of it, you feel connected with the people before you and the people that will come after you. And it's an honor to be an Ohio State Buckeye.
He liked the game of football, and he didn't want any hogwash about it. He was going to play, and he was going to do what was right on and off the field to make himself a better football player. He was dedicated to the people and to the program and to the school, and he did everything by the book, buddy. I mean, he was a joy to coach.
Those who thought Chris Spielman was too small and too slow for stardom never accounted for the size of his heart. And while size and speed can be captured in numbers, the caliber of one's character can only be measured by the quality of our actions, the sincerity of our words, the strength of our relationships, and in our willingness to serve. It is in this arena, the game of life, that Chris Spielman has received his greatest rewards. For Buckeye Classics, I'm Archie Griffin. Thanks for watching.